The notification chimed at 11:47 p.m., and I should have ignored it. Should have rolled over, pulled the pillow over my head, and pretended my wife Zara wasn't out celebrating her boss's birthday for the third time this month. Instead, I reached for her forgotten phone on the nightstand. "Running late, honey. Brett's birthday party is amazing. Don't wait up. Love you." I stared at the screen, my engineering mind automatically calculating probabilities. Brett Hammond, Zara's supervisor at Stallworth Holdings, celebrating his birthday in February. The same Brett who'd thrown his actual birthday bash last July. A company-wide barbecue I'd attended, complete with a show haas, to quote one Rao, banners, and a cake shaped like a golf course. My name is Drake Torin. I design industrial equipment for a living, which means I solve problems by breaking them down into logical components. Right now, the problem was simple. My wife of 8 years was lying to me, and she wasn't even good at it. I grabbed my laptop and pulled up social media. Brett's latest post showed him at home with his wife Vivian watching Netflix. Posted 20 minutes ago. No party, no celebration. Just a middle-aged executive in pajamas, completely unaware that his name was being used to cover someone else's affair. The house felt different suddenly. Too quiet, too empty. Our wedding photos on the dresser seemed to mock me with their frozen smiles. I'd been an Army communications specialist before transitioning to civilian engineering. In the military, you learn to trust your instincts. Mine were screaming now. I scrolled through Zara's recent messages, finding a pattern I'd been too trusting to notice before. Late meetings that ran past midnight. Weekend strategy sessions. Emergency client dinners that required overnight stays, all with Brett, according to her stories. All lies, according to his social media presence. My phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Bell, our 70-year-old neighbor who spent her retirement monitoring the neighborhood like a one-woman surveillance system. Quote, 2, same car, same man. Not Brett. I'd seen his silver BMW plenty of times. This was someone else entirely. I pulled on jeans and a jacket, grabbed the printed screenshots, and headed for my truck. If Zara wanted to play games, I'd learn the rules. But first, I needed to talk to someone who might have answers. Vivian Hammond lived in the executive district, her house a monument to corporate success. At midnight, most reasonable people would be asleep, but something told me Vivian Hammond wasn't most people. She answered the door on the second ring, fully dressed, as if she'd been expecting me. Quote, 3 ticks, she said, stepping aside to let me in. Quote, 4. Her living room was immaculate, decorated in shades of gray and white that reminded me of a high-end office. Vivian herself was sharp-featured, with silver hair pulled back severely and eyes that missed nothing. Quote, 5, I said. Quote, sk. She gestured to a leather chair. Quote, 7, I remained standing. Quote, Vivian moved to a cabinet and pulled out a manila folder. Quote, 10. She handed me the folder. Inside were printouts of expense reports, calendar entries, and what looked like security logs from Stallworth Holdings. Quote, 11. Vivian continued, noting my surprise. Quote, 12. The security log showed Zara's keycard being used to access the building on nights she'd claimed to be at client dinners. Brett's card showed similar after-hours activity. But there was a third card, someone identified only as Guest Access 7. Who's Guest Access 7? I asked. That's what we're going to find out. Vivian's smile was sharp as a blade. Quote, 16. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. The Stallworth Holdings building loomed against the night sky like a glass and steel monument to corporate ambition. Vivian's keycard got us past the security desk, where a sleepy guard nodded respectfully at his ultimate boss. Mrs. Hammond, working late tonight? Something like that, Paul. Don't mind us. The elevator ride to the 15th floor felt endless. Vivian stood perfectly composed, but I could feel tension radiating from her like heat from an engine. My own nerves were wound tight enough to snap. How long have you suspected? I asked. 3 months. Brett started working late, claimed he was mentoring junior staff. Your wife's name came up frequently. The elevator dinged softly. But Brett's not the mentoring type. He's barely competent at his own job. The executive floor was dimly lit, emergency lighting casting long shadows across the hallway. We moved quietly toward Brett's corner office, where light spilled from under the door. Vivian held up a hand, then pointed to her ear. Voices carried through the thin walls, a man's laugh followed by a woman's giggle. Not Zara's giggle, someone else entirely. "Well," Vivian whispered, "this is unexpected." She produced her phone and opened an app that showed the building's security camera feeds. The screen displayed Brett's office in real time. My wife's supervisor sat behind his desk, but he wasn't alone. A blonde woman I didn't recognize was perched on the edge of his desk, leaning close. "Quote 24, I asked. "Quote 25. Vivian's voice carried a note of grim satisfaction. "But where's your wife?" As if summoned by the question, another figure appeared on the security feed. Zara entered the office carrying a bottle of champagne and 3 glasses. She moved with the easy familiarity of someone who'd done this before. My stomach dropped. Not an affair, a conspiracy. Whatever was happening here involved all 3 of them. Vivian was already moving, her heels clicking decisively on the polished floor. I followed, my engineering mind racing through possibilities. Corporate espionage, embezzlement, fraud. None of the scenarios were good. She knocked on Brett's door, 3 sharp raps that echoed like gunshots. "Brett, it's Vivian. We need to talk." The voices inside went silent. Shuffling sounds, whispered arguments, then Brett's voice, artificially cheerful. Quote 28. Quote 29. More shuffling. When the door finally opened, Brett stood there in his shirt sleeves, tie loosened, trying to project casual confidence. Behind him, Mia sat in a client chair, suddenly fascinated by her phone. Zara stood by the window, champagne bottle nowhere in sight. Quote 30. Zara's voice pitched too high. "What are you doing here?" "Funny story," I said, stepping into the office. "I was wondering the same thing about you, especially since this is supposed to be Brett's birthday party, and Brett's birthday is in July." The silence that followed was profound. Brett's face went through several color changes, settling on a sickly gray. Mia continued staring at her phone as if it might transport her elsewhere. Zara opened and closed her mouth like a fish out of water. Vivian closed the door behind us and activated the office's privacy settings. Frosted glass walls, soundproofing engaged. "Now then, let's discuss what's really been happening during these late-night strategy sessions." She moved to Brett's computer and began typing, her fingers flying over the keys with practiced efficiency. Quote 35. Quote 36. Quote 37. Files began appearing on the wall-mounted display. Quote 38. The first document sent a jolt through me, a full proposal for a new industrial design firm, complete with client lists, pricing plans, and technical details. My technical details, taken straight from projects I'd talked over with Zara at dinner. Quote 39. Vivian continued, scrolling through the document. Quote 40. The second document was worse. A comprehensive list of my clients, their contact information, project timelines, and budget allocations. Information that could only have come from someone with access to my home office. Quote 41, I said, looking directly at Zara. Quote 42. Zara finally found her voice. Quote 43. Quote 44. Quote 45. Mia said, speaking for the first time. Her voice carried the artificial brightness of someone trying to spin disaster into opportunity. Vivian laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Quote 46. She pulled up another screen, financial records showing company funds diverted to pay for market research, legal consultations, and business registration fees. All approved by Brett's authorization codes. $50,000 in unauthorized expenditures, Vivian announced. That's a felony in this state. Brett finally spoke up. Now wait just a minute, Vivian. You're taking this all out of context. Am I? She turned to face him fully, and I was glad I wasn't on the receiving end of that stare. Quote 51. The room fell silent except for the hum of the building's ventilation system. Outside the windows, the city sparkled with late-night lights, oblivious to the drama unfolding 15 floors above the street. I looked at Zara, really looked at her, and realized I was seeing a stranger. The woman I'd married, the woman I'd trusted with my dreams and secrets, was gone. In her place stood someone calculating and cold, someone who'd been planning my professional destruction while sharing my bed. Quote 52, I said quietly. Quote 53. Quote 54. Vivian was still typing, pulling up more files. Quote 55. She gestured to the wall display, now showing a complex web of connections between the stolen information, the unauthorized expenditures, and several potential client contracts. Quote 56. Her voice carried the finality of a judge pronouncing sentence. Quote 57. Quote 58, I asked. Quote 59. Zara and Brett exchanged glances. Mia suddenly became very interested in the ceiling tiles. Quote 60. Zara admitted finally. Quote 61. The magnitude of the betrayal hit me like a physical blow. 8 years of marriage, 15 years of building my business, all sacrificed for their get-rich-quick scheme. But as I stood there in that sterile office, surrounded by the wreckage of my personal and professional life, something unexpected happened. Instead of despair, I felt a cold, calculating anger settling into my bones. They wanted to play hardball? Fine. I'd spent 6 years in the Army learning how to win wars. Time to put that training to use. The next morning, I sat in my home office staring at a legal pad covered with notes, flowcharts, and tactical assessments. Military planning habits die hard, and right now I needed every advantage I could get. Zara had packed a bag and left for her sister's house around 3 a.m. after a screaming match that probably woke half the neighborhood. She'd tried tears, anger, and finally threats, but I'd remained stone-faced throughout. The woman who'd betrayed me had no power over me anymore. My phone rang. Victor Reyes, my old Army buddy who'd transitioned into private investigation work after his discharge. Quote 62. I gave him the condensed version. Cheating wife, stolen business plans, corporate conspiracy. Victor listened without interruption, making occasional grunts of understanding. Quote 63, he said when I finished. Quote 64. Quote 65. Quote 66. He paused. Quote 67. Quote 68. After ending the call, I drove to my workshop, a converted garage where I kept my drafting equipment and project prototypes. The space had always been my sanctuary, but now it felt violated. How many times had Zara brought her conspirators here? How many of my trade secrets had she photographed while I was at client meetings? My neighbor, Mrs. Bell, appeared at the fence separating our properties, carrying a plate of cookies and wearing her usual expression of concerned nosiness. Quote 69. Quote 70. The older woman's eyes widened with the delight of someone who'd stumbled onto premium gossip. Quote 71. Quote 72. Quote 73. She leaned closer conspiratorially. Quote 74. I could have kissed her. Quote 75. She handed me a folded piece of paper along with the cookies. Quote 76. The license plates belonged to Brett, Mia, and a third person I didn't recognize, someone named Jennifer Walsh, according to Victor's preliminary research. Another stalwart employee, apparently, from the accounting department. The conspiracy was bigger than I'd thought. That afternoon, I drove to Frankie's Bar, a blue-collar establishment near the industrial district where contractors and tradesmen gathered after work. Frankie Morrison had been running the place for 20 years, and his customer base included half the skilled workers in the city. Quote 77. Quote 778. Frankie's expression darkened. You mean those parasites who've been calling around, claiming they can undercut everyone's prices? Yeah, I've heard about them. Bad news travels fast in this business. He poured me a beer and leaned across the bar. Word is, they've got inside information on bid processes and project specifications. Some of the guys think there's a mole in one of the established firms. The mole is my wife, I said quietly. Frankie's eyebrows shot up. Quote 82. I gave him the basic facts, watching his expression shift from surprise to anger. Frankie had strong opinions about loyalty and betrayal, shaped by 30 years in the construction business. Quote 83. He refilled my glass without being asked. Quote 84. Quote 85. Quote 86. By evening, I'd compiled a comprehensive battle plan. Victor would handle the investigative work, digging up financial records and communication patterns. Mrs. Bell would continue her surveillance operations, tracking the conspirators' movements. Frankie would spread the word through the contractor network, warning people about the new firm's questionable practices. But the centerpiece of my strategy was Vivian Hammond. As CEO of Stallworth Holdings, she had both the resources and the motivation to make life difficult for the people who'd betrayed her company. More importantly, she'd seemed genuinely angry about the whole situation. I called her that evening. "Drake, I was wondering when I'd hear from you. How are you holding up?" I'm planning my counterattack, I said. I'd like to discuss a partnership. I'm listening. Your husband and his accomplices have exposed both of us to significant damage. They've stolen proprietary information, misused company resources, and potentially violated several federal laws. I think we should coordinate our responses. There was a pause, then a sound that might have been a chuckle. You know, Drake, I think I underestimated you. Most people in your situation would be focused on emotional revenge. You're thinking strategically. Emotional revenge is satisfying, but strategic revenge is permanent. Indeed. Why don't you come by my office tomorrow morning? I think we can help each other quite effectively. After hanging up, I sat in my kitchen reviewing my notes and eating Mrs. Bell's cookies. For the first time since discovering Zara's betrayal, I felt something approaching optimism. They'd tried to destroy me using corporate tactics and insider information. But they'd made one critical error. They'd assumed I was just another trusting husband who wouldn't fight back. Time to show them how wrong they were. Vivian's office occupied the top floor of the Stallworth building, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a commanding view of the city. She sat behind a desk that probably cost more than most people's cars, reviewing a stack of documents with the focused intensity of a general planning a campaign. Sit, she said without looking up. Coffee? Please. She pressed a button on her desk intercom. Janet, 2 coffees, the good stuff. While we waited, Vivian continued reading. I used the time to study my temporary ally. Everything about her projected competence and control, from her perfectly tailored suit to the way she held her pen. This was someone who'd built an empire through careful planning and ruthless execution. Quote 99. She said finally, sliding a folder across the desk. Quote 100. Victor's report was comprehensive. Financial records showing unauthorized transfers from company accounts. Email logs revealing coordination between Brett, Mia, and Jennifer Walsh. Phone records documenting calls to my clients using information that could only have come from Zara. But the most damaging evidence was a recorded conversation between Brett and a potential investor, discussing their plan to eliminate competition through strategic intelligence gathering. How did Victor get this recording? I asked. Trade secret. The important thing is that it's legally admissible. Vivian's smile was sharp. Quote 104. She pulled up another document on her computer screen. Quote 105. Quote 106. Quote 107. She paused. Quote 108. I felt a cold satisfaction settling in my chest. Quote, and only to 109. Or quote, 110. Quote, 111. Vivian leaned back in her chair, steepling her fingers. Quote, 112. She outlined her strategy, a carefully orchestrated campaign designed to isolate the conspirators professionally and socially, while giving them opportunities to confess and make restitution. It was elegant, efficient, and utterly ruthless. Quote 113, she explained. Quote 114. That afternoon, I drove to the offices of Morrison & Associates, one of my oldest clients. Jim Morrison, no relation to Frankie, had been using my design services for nearly a decade. Quote 115. Jim's office was cluttered with blueprints, project photos, and coffee-stained paperwork. He gestured to a chair while pouring coffee from a pot that looked like it had been brewing since morning. I got a strange call last week, he said without preamble. Some new firm claiming they could duplicate your work for half the price. Said they had access to your design specifications. What did you tell them? I told them to go to hell, of course, but it got me thinking, how would they know about your specifications unless... He trailed off, understanding dawning on his face. Unless someone with access to my files was feeding them information, I finished. Someone like my wife. Jim's expression hardened. Quote 122. I spent the next hour explaining the situation and showing him Victor's evidence. By the time I finished, Jim was furious on my behalf. What do you need from me? He asked. Spread the word. Make sure everyone in the industry knows what happened and who was responsible. These people tried to destroy my business using stolen information. The community needs to know. Consider it done. By tomorrow, every contractor in the city will know exactly what Zara and her friends tried to pull. Similar conversations took place throughout the week, client after client, colleague after colleague, all expressing outrage at the betrayal and promising to blacklist the conspirators. The contractor network was tight-knit and unforgiving. Once word spread, Brett's new firm would never get a legitimate contract in the city. But Vivian had bigger plans. Quote 126. She told me during our daily strategy session. Quote 127. She'd been working with her legal team to prepare a comprehensive case that would follow the conspirators wherever they went. Professional sanctions, industry blacklisting, and financial penalties that would take years to resolve. The beauty of corporate law, she explained, is that it's designed to protect intellectual property and trade secrets. What they did isn't just unethical, it's illegal on multiple levels. Meanwhile, Victor's investigation had uncovered additional evidence of the conspiracy's scope. Jennifer Walsh, the accounting department accomplice, had been embezzling company funds for months to finance the new firm's startup costs. Mia had been using her marketing position to gather competitive intelligence on other Stallworth clients. Brett had been falsifying expense reports to cover the costs of secret meetings and planning sessions. Quote 130. Victor reported. Quote 131. Quote 132, I said. Bombor quote 133. Quote 134. The mistakes were adding up. Phone records showing coordination during company time. Email logs revealing the use of corporate resources for personal business. Financial records documenting unauthorized expenditures and fraudulent expense claims. By the end of the week, Vivian had assembled enough evidence to destroy all 4 conspirators professionally and personally. The question was how to deploy it for maximum effect. Quote 135. She mused during our Friday meeting. Quote 136. Quote 137. I said. Her smile was predatory. Quote 138. The message went out Friday afternoon. Mandatory emergency meeting, all involved parties, Saturday morning at 9 a.m. sharp. Vivian's assistant sent it with the kind of corporate authority that brooked no argument. I arrived early, parking across the street from the Stallworth building to watch the conspirators arrive. Brett showed up first, looking haggard and nervous. Mia came next, clutching a coffee like a lifeline. Jennifer Walsh arrived last, checking her phone obsessively. Zara's car pulled up just as I was entering the building. We rode the elevator together in tense silence, standing on opposite sides of the car like strangers. Quote 139, she said, finally. Quote 140. Quote 141. Quote 142, and quote 143. The elevator opened on the 15th floor, ending the conversation. Vivian waited in the conference room, surrounded by stacks of documents and looking like an avenging angel in a business suit. Quote 144, she commanded as we filed in. Quote 145. She activated the room's privacy settings and began without preamble. Over the past week, I've conducted a comprehensive investigation into the unauthorized business activities that several of you have been pursuing using company resources and stolen proprietary information. The wall-mounted display came to life, showing a timeline of the conspiracy from its inception to the present moment. Email logs, phone records, financial transactions, everything laid out in devastating detail. Brett, you used your position as a department supervisor to access confidential client information and company resources. You also authorized $50,000 in unauthorized expenditures to fund your competing business venture. Brett's face had gone pale. Quote 148. Quote 149. Her voice cut through his protest like a blade. Quote 150. Mia was staring at the table, her earlier confidence completely evaporated. Quote 151. Jennifer looked like she might be sick. Quote 152. Vivian continued, turning to my wife. Quote 153. The room was silent except for the hum of the building's ventilation system. Outside, the city went about its Saturday morning business, unaware of the corporate drama unfolding 15 floors above the street. The evidence against all of you is overwhelming, Vivian continued. Corporate espionage, embezzlement, theft of trade secrets, conspiracy to commit fraud. These are serious felonies with serious consequences. She gestured to the stacks of documents surrounding her. I have enough evidence here to send all of you to prison for the next decade. The question is whether that's necessary. Brett found his voice first. What do you want? I want full restitution for the stolen funds. I want written confessions detailing your activities. I want the complete dissolution of your competing business venture. And I want guarantees that none of you will ever again work in this industry. You can't destroy our careers over a misunderstanding, Mia began. Misunderstanding. I spoke for the first time since entering the room. You stole my client list, my project specifications, and my business relationships. You tried to destroy everything I've spent 15 years building. That's not a misunderstanding. That's war. I stood up, moving to the window to look out at the city below. You know what the funny thing is? I trusted all of you. Brett, I thought you were just Zara's boss. Mia, I barely knew you existed. Jennifer, I'd never even heard your name before this week. I turned back to face them. But Zara, I trusted you with everything. My dreams, my secrets, my business plans. I shared my life with you, and you used that trust to try to destroy me. Zara's eyes were red, but I felt no sympathy. The woman sitting at that conference table was a stranger who happened to share my last name. Quote, 10604. Vivian said, retaking control of the meeting. Quote, 165. She slid documents across the table to each of them. Quote, 166. Quote, 167. Brett asked weakly. Quote, 138. One by one, they signed the documents. Brett's signature was shaky. Mia cried while she wrote her name. Jennifer just looked defeated. Zara, Vivian said finally, your situation is different since you weren't a company employee. However, you did participate in a conspiracy that caused significant damage to both Drake's business and Stallworth Holdings. My wife looked up hopefully, as if expecting mercy. Drake has decided to handle your situation privately, Vivian continued. However, I want you to understand that your actions have consequences beyond your marriage. The contractor community in this city is small and unforgiving. Word of what you did will follow you wherever you go. After the others left, escorted by security, I remained in the conference room with Vivian. The city skyline stretched out before us, a testament to human ambition and achievement. How do you feel? She asked. Empty, I admitted. I thought I'd feel satisfied, but mostly I just feel empty. That's normal. Betrayal leaves a void that victory can't fill. She began gathering her documents. But you did the right thing. They tried to destroy you, and you fought back. That takes courage. What happens now? Now you rebuild. Your reputation in the industry is stronger than ever. People respect someone who fights back against betrayal. Your client base is secure, and you're free of people who are holding you back. She handed me a business card. If you ever want to discuss larger projects, give me a call. Stallworth Holdings is always looking for reliable contractors. That evening, I sat in my workshop, surrounded by the tools and prototypes that represented my life's work. The space felt different now, cleaner somehow, as if removing the conspirators had purified the air. My phone buzzed with a text from Victor. It fronts one quote 421. I thought about it for a moment, then typed back, one quote 182, and it would. The contractor network was vast and interconnected. Brett and his accomplices would find that their reputations had preceded them wherever they went. Not because of any active campaign on my part, but because people talked, and betrayal was the kind of story that spread quickly. I looked around my workshop one more time, then turned off the lights and headed for the house. Tomorrow was Sunday. I'd sleep late, read the paper, maybe call some old friends I'd neglected during my marriage. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe freely. The war was over. I'd won, and that was enough.